The champagne flute slipped from my fingers and shattered against the marble vanity like a gunshot in the quiet of the bridal suite. "Daniel?" I whispered to my reflection in the mirror, my voice cracking like the glass at my feet. "What the hell are we doing?" But he wasn't there to answer yet. Outside, the organ swelled with Mendelssohn's Wedding March, a mocking fanfare for the life I was about to chain myself to. And that's when Max, our golden retriever, burst through the half-open door, his paws skidding on the rug, eyes wild with a panic I'd only seen once before. The night Daniel's ex had shown up drunk on our doorstep 2 years ago. I dropped to my knees amid the shards, ignoring the sting in my palms, and grabbed Max by the collar. "Easy, boy. What's got you spooked?" He whined, low and guttural, then spat something from his jaws. A crumpled envelope, yellowed with age, addressed in faded blue ink to Danny Boy, from someone named Alex. My heart slammed against my ribs as I tore it open, the paper rasping like a death rattle. The words blurred through the sudden flood in my eyes. "I can't pretend anymore. Meet me under the bleachers after the game. I love you, and it hurts more than the hits I take on the field." It was dated October 15th, 2005, Daniel's senior year at Lincoln High in rural Ohio, a lifetime ago, or so I'd thought. The door flew open, and there was Daniel, resplendent in his cream tuxedo. His dark hair slicked back, that boyish grin plastered on like war paint. "Will, babe, they're waiting. You ready to make this official?" His voice was light, teasing, the same tone that had reeled me in at that dive bar in Brooklyn 5 years ago. But now it landed like a sucker punch. I held up the letter, my hand shaking so hard the paper fluttered like a trapped bird. His face drained of color, the grin curdling into something feral. "Where did you—" "Max, you damn mutt." He lunged for the dog, but Max planted himself between us, hackles up, a growl rumbling from deep in his chest. That was the moment everything cracked open, the fairy tale I'd scripted for us splintering into shards sharper than the broken glass. Daniel and I had met in the chaos of New York, 2 Midwestern transplants chasing dreams in a city that chewed up romantics and spat out cynics. I was William Hargrove, 28 then, a graphic designer scraping by on freelance gigs, sketching logos for startups that folded faster than cheap suits. He was Daniel Reese, 29, a rising star at a boutique law firm, all sharp suits and sharper wit, with a laugh that could disarm a room. We'd bonded over bad IPAs and worse exes, trading stories of small-town escapes. Me from the cornfields of Indiana, him from the Rust Belt ghost towns of Ohio. Our first date was a picnic in Central Park, rain turning it into a soggy disaster that ended with us huddled under a tarp, sharing a thermos of spiked coffee. "Your trouble, William," he'd said, his green eyes locking on mine like he was reading a contract he intended to sign. "The good kind." I'd shot back, and he'd leaned in, his breath warm against my ear. "The kind that makes me want to rewrite my whole damn life." By month 3, we were inseparable. Lazy Sundays in his walk-up apartment in Williamsburg. Max, his dog from a shelter adoption post-breakup, curled at our feet and whispered promises about forever. He proposed on the Brooklyn Bridge at dawn, a simple platinum band glinting in the first light, and I'd said yes without a second thought, because Daniel made the world feel like it bent toward us. But secrets have a way of festering, don't they? Like the time I'd found that locked box under his bed, filled with Polaroids of a younger him, arm in arm with teammates, all grins and gridiron glory. I'd never pried. Love, I told myself, was about trust, not excavation. Now, as the church bells tolled outside St. Mark's Episcopal in Manhattan, the envelope burned in my fist. "Alex," I said, the name tasting like ash. "Who the fuck is Alex, Daniel?" He froze, his hand midway to mine, the bouquet of white roses trembling in his grip. The guests, our patchwork family of friends from the city, a smattering of relatives who'd flown in despite the awkwardness of a same-sex wedding in 2015, murmured from the pews. My sister Ellie shot me a wide-eyed text under the table. "Everything okay up there?" No, nothing was okay. Daniel's jaw worked, silent for the first time in our history, and Max pressed his flank against my leg, a warm anchor in the storm. "Will, it's not," he started, But I cut him off, thrusting the letter forward like evidence in his own trial. Not what? Not a love letter from your high school boyfriend? Not something you buried so deep even your dog couldn't forget it? My voice echoed off the vaulted ceilings, drawing gasps from the aisle. Reverend Hayes, a kindly old bear of a man who'd married half the queer couples in Chelsea, cleared his throat awkwardly. Gentlemen, perhaps we should. No, Daniel snapped, his eyes flashing with a fury I'd never seen directed at me. He snatched the letter, crumpling it further, and for a split second, I saw the boy from those photos, the quarterback with the unbreakable arm, hiding fractures no one else could see. This isn't the time. Not here. Then when, Daniel? After we say, I do, and pretend this never happened. Tears hot-tracked down my cheeks. But I didn't wipe them. Let him see. Let everyone see the man he'd reduced to this. A groom unraveling before the vows. Max whined again, nosing the hem of my slacks, and in that instant, I realized the dog hadn't just found the letter. He'd been carrying it like a talisman of grief, unearthed from wherever Daniel had stashed his past. The organist faltered, the melody dying into dissonance, and the congregation shifted like a tide pulling back from shore. Ellie's husband, Tom, stood halfway up the aisle, his face a mask of concern. Daniel's mother, Evelyn, clutched her pearls, her lips moving in silent prayer. The same woman who'd once whispered to me at Thanksgiving, "My boy's been through hell. You keep him steady, William." Hell, was that what this was? Or just the prelude? I turned from him then, my back to the altar, to the life we'd built brick by stolen brick. "Tell me about Alex," I demanded, my voice steady now, forged in the fire of betrayal. "Or this wedding ends before it begins." Daniel's shoulders slumped, the fight leaching out of him like air from a punctured tire. He sank onto the edge of a pew, burying his face in his hands. Max padded over, laying his head in Daniel's lap, but even the dog's forgiveness felt conditional. "Alex was everything," he murmured, the words muffled but clear as a confession. "My first love, my only secret." And just like that, the dam broke. The story poured out in halting bursts, each revelation a knife twist deeper than the last. It started in the fall of 2004, Daniel's junior year at Lincoln High, a sprawling brick fortress in Millersburg, Ohio, where Friday nights meant bonfires and the roar of the crowd under floodlights. Football was religion there, and Daniel was its golden idol, quarterback with a cannon arm, homecoming king in waiting. But beneath the shoulder pads and the cheers, he was suffocating. Alex Harlan was the wide receiver, a lanky kid with freckles like constellations and a smile that lit up the end zone. They met in summer practice, sweat-soaked and breathless, passing drills turning into something electric. "You're gonna make me look bad out there, Reese," Alex had joked after a perfect spiral, clapping Daniel on the back a beat too long. Daniel felt it then, the spark, the terror. In a town where faggot was the worst slur hurled from the bleachers, admitting you were gay was like signing your own exile. They kept it hidden at first. Notes folded into playbooks, stolen glances in the locker room showers. By senior year, it was all-consuming. Late-night drives in Alex's beat-up Chevy to the quarry outside town, where they'd park under the stars, hands exploring in the dark, hearts racing faster than any touchdown sprint. "I love you," Alex whispered one night, his head on Daniel's chest, the radio humming Johnny Cash. "And I don't care who knows." But Daniel did. God, he did. His father, a steel mill foreman with fists like hammers and a temper to match, had once beaten him bloody for acting soft. His mother turned a blind eye, baking pies for PTA meetings while her son learned to lie. The letter, the one Max had unearthed from a forgotten box in the attic during our move last month, was Alex's Hail Mary. Homecoming week, rumors swirling about scouts from Ohio State, pressure mounting. Alex wanted out. "Let's tell them, Danny. After the game, we run together." Daniel panicked, shoved the note in his locker, and never responded. The game was a blur. Daniel throwing for 300 yards, Alex hauling in the winning catch. But under the bleachers afterward, Alex waited alone, the October chill biting through his Letterman jacket. He didn't show, Daniel said, his voice breaking as he recounted it now, 10 years later, in the shadow of stained glass. Alex waited until the stadium emptied, then drove to the quarry alone. They found his truck the next morning, keys in the ignition, engine cold. A note on the dash. You were my end zone, Danny. Why didn't you cross? Pills scattered like confetti. 22 years old, and gone. The church spun around me, the air thick with incense and regret. You never told anyone? I choked out, kneeling beside him now, Max wedged between us like a furry mediator. Daniel shook his head, tears carving tracks through his foundation. Who would believe it? The star QB, driving his best friend to suicide? I buried it, transferred to NYU, changed my name legally from Danny to Daniel, started over. Met you, and for the first time I thought I could outrun it. But ghosts don't run, they haunt. And Max, that intuitive beast, had sensed it all along. Sniffing out the box during unpacking, guarding the letter like a sentinel. I'd found him whining at it last week, but Daniel had laughed it off. Old junk mail, buddy. Lies upon lies, layered like the sediments of a life half-lived. As the guests filtered out in hushed sympathy, Ellie hugging me fiercely, Evelyn murmuring apologies. The weight settled. This wasn't just a secret. It was a wound, festering since high school, now suppurating on our wedding day. Do you still love him? I asked, the question a razor across my throat. Daniel lifted his eyes, green as the quarry depths. Every day. But you, Will, you're my redemption. He reached for my hand, and I let him take it, the band on his finger cool against my skin. The church emptied, leaving us with Max and the echoes. We didn't cancel the wedding, not yet. Instead, we drove to Ohio that night, tuxedos rumpled, chasing closure in the rust and regret of Daniel's past. The highway unspooled beneath our tires like a black ribbon of regret, the Catskills blurring into the Pennsylvania Turnpike under a moon that hung low and judgmental. Max snoozed in the back seat of our rented Prius, oblivious to the chasm yawning between Daniel and me. I'd insisted on driving, something about reclaiming control after the aisle-side implosion, and he didn't argue, just stared out the window, the letter clutched in his lap like a talisman he couldn't release. Millersburg's about 5 hours, I said, breaking the silence that had thickened since we'd fled the reception hall, where cake sat uneaten and toasts turned to awkward small talk. Ellie had covered for us, spinning a tale of cold feet jitters to the guests, but her texts lit up my phone. Call me when you land. Okay? Love you both. Love. That word felt weaponized now, a grenade with the pin half pulled. Daniel nodded, his profile etched sharp against the passing sodium lights. The quarry first. Easier there. Easier for what? Unloading the baggage? Or burying us deeper? I gripped the wheel tighter, knuckles whitening. 5 years of building this, movie nights in our cramped loft, holidays with my folks in Indianapolis pretending we were just roommates for Grandma's sake. The quiet pride of his promotion last spring, toasting with craft beers on our fire escape. All of it teetered now on the ghost of a boy who died loving him. We arrived at dawn, the quarry a yawning scar in the earth just off Route 39. Chain link fence sagging like tired shoulders. Mist clung to the limestone cliffs, and the air smelled of wet stone and pine. Clean, almost merciful. Daniel led the way, Max trotting ahead with unerring instinct, as if he'd been here before. We parked by the old access road, overgrown with thistles, and followed a faint path to the water's edge, a glassy mirror reflecting the first blush of sunrise. He stopped at a weathered plaque half buried in gravel, in memory of Alexander Harlan, 1987 to 2005. Beloved son, friend, teammate. No mention of lover, of course. In Millersburg, that was a sin too profane for marble. Daniel traced the letters with trembling fingers. We used to swim here in summer, naked, laughing like idiots. He said it was our secret ocean. His voice was soft, laced with a nostalgia that twisted in my gut. I wanted to hate Alex, for existing, for haunting us, but how could I? He was the casualty of a world that demanded closets over coffins. Tell me more, I urged, sinking onto a boulder, the chill seeping through my slacks. Not out of masochism, but necessity. If we were to salvage this, I needed the full autopsy of his heart. Daniel paced the shore, pebbles crunching underfoot, and the story unfolded like a film reel stuttering to life. Alex was fire to Daniel's ice, out and proud in whispers, but bold where Daniel cowered. Born to a single mom who waitress doubles at the diner, Alex had learned early that love wasn't a luxury. It was a fight. He'd sneak me into his trailer after games, Daniel said. Play bootlegs of the Smiths on his boombox. How soon is now? Was our song. They'd dream big. College scholarships, a life in Chicago where no one cared who you kissed. But the team was a pressure cooker. Coach Harlan, Alex's uncle, iron-fisted and Bible-thumping, drilling them with plays and platitudes. Real men don't bend. The rumors started mid-season. A teammate spotting them too close in the huddle. A whisper chain that ended with slurs scrawled on Alex's locker. Fairy. Quitte. Daniel denied it all, threw himself into practice, but Alex cracked first. He confronted me after weights one day, Daniel recounted, his eyes distant, punched my shoulder hard and said, "If you won't stand with me, Danny, stand aside." I froze. Told him it was for his own good. For his own good. The phrase hung between us, a noose disguised as wisdom. Max splashed into the shallows, shaking off water like absolution, and I envied his simplicity. Daniel knelt by the plaque, pulling a small vial from his pocket. Ashes? No, just lake water, which he poured over the stone like an offering. I came back after stole his jersey from the lost and found. Wore it under my pads until graduation. We stayed until the sun crested, burning off the fog, and drove into Millersburg proper. A faded postcard of a town. Main Street lined with boarded-up shops and a single stoplight flickering like a dying pulse. The high school loomed on the hill, Lincoln Hawk Stadium still sporting chipped blue paint, the field mowed neat for ghosts. Daniel pointed out landmarks. The bleachers where they'd first kissed, fumbling and fervent. The oak tree by the track where Alex carved their initials, now scarred over like a healed wound. Hunger gnawed, so we stopped at Harlan's Diner. Irony's cruel joke, named for Alex's family. Evelyn Harlan herself waited tables, her face a map of laugh lines and losses, gray streaks in her bun like silver threads. She didn't recognize Daniel at first. 10 years and city polish had changed him. But when he ordered the usual, her eyes widened. Danny Reese? Lord Almighty, it's you. The reunion was a gut punch. Evelyn enveloped him in a hug that smelled of bacon grease and grief, then slid into our booth uninvited, Max at her feet earning belly rubs. Heard you hightailed it to the big city. Good for you. Her gaze flicked to me, appraising. And who's this handsome devil? William, I supplied, forcing a smile. Fiancé. The word tasted foreign now, but she beamed anyway, pouring coffee black as midnight. Talk turned inevitable to Alex, as rivers to the sea. Evelyn's voice dropped, confiding over pie slices that stuck in my throat. My boy was sunshine, you know? But that town, it dims lights like nobody's business. She recounted the aftermath. The funeral packed with hypocrites, Coach leading prayers while avoiding her eyes. The whispers that Alex chose his path, code for shame. I found his journal after. Full of you, Danny. Sketches of your face. Poems that'd make a grown man weep. Daniel's fork clattered, coffee sloshing. You kept it. Course I did. Locked in my attic, waiting for the right time. She studied him, sharp as a tack. You here for that? Closure. Something like that, he murmured. But his eyes met mine. Pleading, promising. We left with her blessing and a doggy bag. But the weight had shifted. Driving to his childhood home. A sagging Victorian on Elm Street, sold off years ago but now rented to strangers. Daniel confessed more. The guilt that fueled his law career, specializing in LGBTQ rights cases. A penance disguised as passion. Every client I save, it's for him. The house was empty. Realtor's lockbox dangling like a dare. We let ourselves in, dust motes dancing in sunbeams through cracked blinds. Upstairs, his old room. Faded posters of Troy Aikman. A twin bed with a quilt his mom had sewn. Daniel rifled drawers, unearthing relics. A championship ring. A mixtape labeled A&D Forever. Then the closet. A shoebox taped shut, spilling when he tugged it free. Inside, Alex's journal, bound in cracked leather, pages yellowed but alive with ink. I sat on the floor beside him. Max flopped across our laps. As Daniel read aloud in a voice raw as open wire. Entries of stolen moments. Danny's hand in mine under the stars, worth every risk of doubts. He pulls away when I push. Is fear stronger than us? Of despair. If he won't fight, maybe I can't either. The last page, dated the day before. Corey tonight. Last play. Love you, end zone. Tears soaked the pages, ours mingling. I killed him, Daniel whispered, the journal slipping from numb fingers. No, I countered fiercely, cupping his face, thumbs brushing salt from his cheeks. Fear did, and hiding it from me. That's what nearly killed us. Honesty, brutal and bright, cracked the dam. We talked for hours about my own closets, the ex in college who'd outed me to my frat house, the therapy I'd quit because it hurt too much. Vulnerability, we'd both armored against. Now stripped bare in a stranger's attic. By dusk, we emerged changed. The shoebox under Daniel's arm like a covenant. Evelyn invited us for dinner. Meatloaf and memories. And over her formica table, with Max begging scraps, Daniel shared pieces of the truth. Not all. Some wounds need private stitching, but enough to lift the veil. Alex would want you happy, she said, squeezing his hand. Don't let his shadow eclipse your light. That night, we checked into a roadside motel, the neon vacancy, buzzing like a heartbeat. No wedding bands exchanged. Yet, but in the queen bed with Max snoring at the foot, Daniel held me close, his breath steady against my neck. Marry me still? He asked, voice small as the boy who'd lost his way. I turned, kissing his forehead. Tomorrow, after we honor him. Dawn brought the cemetery. Alex's stone under a willow, simple as his life. We scattered petals from Evelyn's garden, read a poem from the journal. To the boy who threw me the ball and my heart, and let Max dig a shallow hole for the letter, burying it with words unspoken too long. Driving back to New York, the highway felt less like escape, more like homecoming. Betrayal's sting lingered, but forgiveness bloomed tentative, a shoot through concrete. Daniel's hand in mine, the ring glinting anew. We'd rewrite the ending, not erasing Alex, but integrating him, a chapter closed but cherished. Back in the city, the skyline pierced the horizon like accusatory fingers, but for the first time, it felt like absolution rather than aspiration. We'd postpone the wedding indefinitely, Ellie handling refunds with her trademark efficiency, guests sending cards that ranged from take your time to call if you need a shoulder or a drink. Daniel dove into work, arguing pro bono cases for queer youth, his fire renewed. I buried myself in designs, sketching logos for a nonprofit aiding LGBTQ runaways, channeling the chaos into creation. Max, ever the therapist, mediated with tail wags and midnight walks along the East River, where we'd toss sticks into the current and pretend we were whole. But wholeness is a myth, isn't it? Fractures show in the light. 2 weeks post-Ohio, the crack widened. A package arrived at our loft, unmarked, postmarked Millersburg. Inside, a manila envelope thick with newsprint clippings, photos, and a note in Evelyn's looping script. Thought you should know the rest. For healing. Love, E. Daniel slid it open on the kitchen island, coffee going cold, and what spilled out was dynamite. Clippings first. Yellowed articles from the Millersburg Gazette, headlines screaming Hawks QB transfer shocker and Harlan tragedy. Football star's shadow. Buried in obits and sports recaps was the undercurrent. A teammate's quote. Reese was tight with Alex. They were like brothers. But the photos told the unspoken. Grainy yearbook shots of Daniel and Alex, arms slung casual, grins too intimate for bros. A candid from the quarry, blurry but unmistakable. 2 silhouettes locked in an embrace against the water. Then the kicker. A police report redacted but damning. Incident date: October 17, 2005, the day after Alex's death. Witness: Coach Harlan. Description: altercation at stadium. Daniel Reese, 17, observed yelling at deceased's locker, striking it repeatedly. Appeared intoxicated. No charges filed. Daniel's face ashened. The mugshot-style Polaroid attached showing him wild-eyed. Blood on his knuckles from the locker dent. "Whoa!" I breathed, flipping pages. "You never said." "I blacked out," he interrupted, voice hollow. "Went to the field after. After they called me. Teammates had cleaned it out, but his cleats were still there. I lost it. Coach dragged me off. Said it'd ruin my future." The note from Evelyn elaborated. "Coach covered it up, family ties, you know. But whispers followed you out of town. Some said you pushed him to it. Lies, of course, but in a place like Millersburg, truth bends to narrative." She'd found the file in her brother's attic after he passed last winter. A guilt hoard he'd kept locked. Betrayal's second wave crashed then. Not just Daniel's silence, but the town's complicity, the way grief gets weaponized into gossip. "They thought I was the villain," he said, sinking to the floor, back against cabinets. Max nosed his hand, whining. I joined him, the envelope a barrier between us. "Why keep this from me? After Ohio?" "Fear," he admitted, echoing his younger self. "What if you saw me as broken? The guy who couldn't save his first love, now dragging you into the wreckage." I pulled him close, the linoleum hard under us. "I'm not running, Daniel. But no more ghosts in the closet." We burned the clippings that night in a coffee can on the fire escape, flames devouring headlines as we toasted marshmallows ironically, laughing through tears. But laughter's fragile. The real storm brewed online. A week later, an email from an unknown sender. "Saw your story on Reddit.
Ohio True Crime.
The QB and the ghost. Check it. Curiosity's curse." I clicked, and there it was. A thread exploding with 5K upvotes. Anonymous posts piecing together Alex's death like a morbid puzzle. Reese was closeted AF, strung the kid along. Heard he got off scot-free 'cause daddy's mill money. Faceless avatars spewing venom. One with a photo of us from the wedding rehearsal. Stolen, posted with caption. "Living his best life while Alex rots." Daniel saw red. I saw opportunity. "We fight this," I said, slamming my laptop shut. "Tell our story, your story, on your terms." He resisted at first. "Let sleeping dogs lie." But the harassment escalated. Voicemails from blocked numbers. "Murderer." A brick through our lobby window with a note. "Justice for Alex." We went public. Daniel penned an op-ed for The Advocate, raw and unflinching. The boy I couldn't save. A quarterback's reckoning. I illustrated it. A silhouette of two figures under bleachers. Hands reaching but not touching. Colors bleeding from blue to red. Published on a Tuesday, it went viral by Thursday. Shares from GLAAD. Interviews on NPR. But fame's a double-edged sword. The backlash hit like a blitz. Trolls doxed our address. Protesters picketed the firm. Signs reading "blood on your hands." Reese. Worse. A call from Evelyn, voice quavering. Coaches' widows suing. Defamation. Says your article libeled the family. Harlan. Still coaching JV. Unrepentant. Claiming Daniel's fantasies. Tarnished Alex's memory. Climax crested in a Cleveland courtroom. 6 months after the wedding that wasn't. I'd taken leave, sketching nervously in the gallery as Daniel testified. Suit crisp, eyes steel. Evelyn took the stand too, her testimony a gut-wrencher. My brother covered for a lot, but he couldn't cover a boy's broken heart. Daniel didn't kill Alex, silence did. The judge dismissed the suit for lack of evidence, but the real win was the press. Headlines shifting from scandal to sympathy. A GoFundMe for a scholarship in Alex's name surging past 50K. Yet victory tasted bittersweet. That night, in a hotel overlooking Lake Erie, Daniel paced like a caged lion. It's out there now. No taking it back. I caught his arm, pulling him to the window. Waves crashed below, relentless. Good. Secrets were killing you. We made love then. Not frantic, but slow, reverent, reclaiming bodies from the past's claim. Max, kenneled nearby, missed the poetry of it. But conflict doesn't resolve neat. It evolves. Back home, the brick's shards still crunched underfoot. A reminder. Daniel threw himself into the scholarship fund, traveling to high schools, speaking to kids in the crosshairs of small-town bigotry. I tagged along when I could, my designs funding awareness campaigns, posters of Alex's smile, captioned "Love wins when we speak it." One evening in Pittsburgh, post-assembly, a kid approached. 16, freckled like Alex, eyes haunted. Your story. It gave me guts to come out. Daniel hugged him, tears unspoken, and I saw it. The redemption arc bending true. But as we drove home, he confessed the deepest cut. Sometimes I wonder if I'd change it, knowing what I know now. Don't, I said, hand on his thigh. You're here, with me. Max's head lolled in the back, dreaming of easier chases. The betrayal's echo faded, replaced by a deeper bond, forged in fire, tempered by truth. We rescheduled the wedding for spring, small and sacred. Central Park, under that same tarp from our first date, rain be damned. But first, one last pilgrimage to Millersburg to lay the final ghost. Spring in Ohio is a tentative promise. Buds unfurling on dogwoods, the air thick with lilac and the faint rot of thawing earth. We arrived in Millersburg on a Friday, Max's nose twitching at the window like he'd scented homecoming. The town had changed little. Same diner, same stoplight, but the stadium gleamed with fresh turf, funded in part by Alex's scholarship drive. Daniel's face as we passed it was a study in scars and salves. Tight lines around his eyes, but a softness too, like grief's grip had loosened a notch. Evelyn hosted us at her trailer now, downsized after the lawsuit dust settled. She'd framed Daniel's op-ed on her mantle, beside Alex's yearbook photo. Proud of you, Danny boy, she said, ladling chili into bowls. Over dinner, stories flowed freer. Alex's penchant for bad puns, his dream of coaching inner-city kids. He saw the good in folks, she mused, even when they didn't deserve it. Saturday brought the ceremony. Not ours, but the unveiling. A plaque at the quarry, etched with Alex's name and a line from his journal. Crossed the line with love. The crowd was eclectic, townies wary but curious. A busload of scholarship kids in Hawks hoodies, reporters milling like polite vultures. Daniel spoke first, voice steady over the microphone. Alex taught me that love isn't a huddle. It's a hand extended, even when you're scared. Applause rippled, tentative then thunderous. I stood off stage, Max leashed at my feet, heart swelling with a pride fiercer than possession. After, a reception at the community center. Potluck spread, bluegrass band fiddling covers of the Smiths. Evelyn pulled me aside, her grip bird-boned but firm. You saved him, William. Don't let him forget. I nodded, throat tight. Saving was mutual, a two-man relay across fault lines. But suspense coiled in the shadows. As dusk fell, a figure approached. Harlan's widow, Miriam, steel-haired and severe, clutching a folder. Daniel, she said, voice clipped as a whistle. A word. Tension crackled. Max growled low. We followed her to a quiet corner, the band fading to murmurs. She thrust the folder forward. Not suing again, just this. Inside, letters, dozens, from Alex to his uncle. Please for understanding, I'm gay, coach, but I'm still your blood. Rejections scrawled in margins. Pray harder, boy. And one from Daniel, post-death. I should have been braver. Forgive me. Miriam's eyes, red-rimmed, met his. He kept them to punish himself. I kept them to understand. You're not the villain here. The air whooshed from him. A decade's breath held too long. They embraced awkwardly. Antagonists turned allies, and she whispered, Coach died regretting. Don't you dare. It was the absolution we chased, handed over like a baton in the dark. We left Ohio lighter, the Prius humming east with Max's snores as soundtrack. New York welcomed us with horns and hustle, our loft a sanctuary of takeout boxes and half-packed boxes for the upstate house we'd bought. Room for a yard, for Max to chase ghosts in peace. But romance, that sly fox, wove back in tentative threads. Daniel surprised me with tickets to a Broadway revival of Angels in America. Pryor's hauntings mirroring our own, and over intermission wine he murmured, "You're my Lewis, the one who stays." I kissed him there, amid velvet curtains and strangers, tasting salt and second chances. And you're my Pryor, beautifully broken, brilliantly alive. The wedding loomed, now a quiet affair. 20 guests, a justice of the peace in the park. But drama, uninvited, crashed the rehearsal dinner at our favorite Williamsburg bistro. A man burst in, mid-30s, broad as a linebacker, face weathered like old leather. "Reese," he barked, zeroing on Daniel. Gasps rippled. Ellie reached for her phone. "Jake." Daniel paled, standing. Jake Harlan, no relation, but a teammate, the fullback who'd blocked for them both. "What they? Been following your story." Jake's voice gravel rough, eyes flicking to me. "Alex's journal. Evelyn sent copies. To the team chat." He pulled a chair, uninvited, the table falling silent. "We all knew, or suspected. After we blamed you, Danny. Pushed you out." Daniel's fork hovered, chilly forgotten. "And now? Jake rubbed his neck, scarred from tackles long past. "I'm out. Married a guy last year, mechanic from Akron. Kids from his ex." Your words. They hit home. He slid a photo across, him, husband, 2 towhead boys at a backyard barbecue. "This is for Alex. Proof we can win." The table exhaled, toasts turning from awkward to electric. Jake stayed till closing, trading war stories, fumbles and firsts, the locker room code that cracked under weight. As he left, clapping Daniel's shoulder, he said, "Cross that line, QB. For all of us." Rehearsal salvaged, we walked home arm in arm, the bridge lights winking like conspirators. "See," I teased, bumping his hip. "Your past isn't poison. It's fertilizer." He stopped, pulling me close under a street lamp's glow. "You make it sound poetic." It is. We're the verse. Wedding day dawned drizzly, true to form. Central Park's Bethesda Terrace. Under a canopy of oaks, guests huddled with umbrellas like colorful fungi. Ellie walked me down the aisle, a gravel path lined with lanterns. Max prancing ahead with rings tied to his collar. Daniel waited by the fountain, suit damp but smile radiant, green eyes clear as quarry water. Vows exchanged were raw etchings. "I promise to hold your hand through the huddles," Daniel said, voice carrying over patter. "To call your bluffs and catch your spirals. Mine. I'll be your wide out, your witness, your why, through touchdowns and turnovers." Rings slid on, platinum warmed by our palms, and the kiss sealed it, rain mingling with tears, cheers erupting like crowd roar. Reception in a nearby pavilion. Cake smashed with glee, dances to How Soon Is Now. Jake even FaceTimed from Ohio, his boys waving flags. But emotions tide ebbs, revealing undercurrents. That night, in our hotel suite overlooking the reservoir, Daniel unburdened the last. "I dreamed of him last night, not dying but running. With us." I traced his jaw. "He is, in every step we take." Humanism bloomed there, in the messy grace of survival, love as verb not noun. No tidy bows, but threads woven strong. Honeymoon was a road trip upstate, deliberate echo of our first escape. The Prius loaded with Max's bed, a cooler of IPAs, and playlists blending cash with Cashmere Cat. We meandered the Hudson Valley, stopping at farm stands for cider and corn mazes that doubled as metaphors for our twists. In a cabin by Letchworth Gorge, Grand Canyon of the East, we hiked trails slick with autumn teas, hands linked over roots like lifelines. Nights by the fire, stories circled back. Not to haunt, but to heal. Daniel shared Alex's laugh lines, the way he'd quote Whitman mid-kiss. "I am large, I contain multitudes. I confessed my college exile, the frat house bonfire where my sketchbook burned, pages of him, a nameless crush, curling to ash. We both learned to rebuild from embers, I said, poking logs till sparks flew. Max chased squirrels by day, collapsed in heaps by night, his loyalty the unspoken glue. One evening, as leaves rustled like applause, Daniel pulled the old mixtape from our glove box. Cassette warped but whispering. We rigged it to the Bluetooth, this charming man crackling through speakers. He danced me slow across the porch, clumsy steps on warped boards. To Alex, he toasted, clinking bottles. And to us. Back in the city by October, life resumed its rhythm. Workdays bleeding into evenings of takeout and true crime docs. Weekends volunteering at the shelter where we'd adopted Max. The scholarship thrived. First recipient, a trans kid from Toledo named Riley, emailing thanks with photos from his NYU dorm. Your story gave me the snap count, he wrote. Daniel framed it by our bed, beside our wedding portrait. Us, rain-kissed, Max photobombed in the foreground. But drama's shadow lingers. 6 months post-vows, it reared in a client file. Daniel's firm took a case. A rural Ohio teen, outed and ostracized, suing his school for harassment. Millersburg High. Coincidence? He joked, but his eyes said otherwise. We drove down together, Max in tow, turning deposition into pilgrimage. The kid, Tyler, 17, all limbs and defiance, met us in a library smelling of old books and older fears. They called me the next Alex, he said, voice steady but eyes darting. Rumors of Daniel's return swirled. Coach Harlan's ghost loomed in policy memos. Daniel coached him through testimony, role-playing objections till Tyler stood taller. Trial week was a gauntlet. Cross-examinations dredging small-town sludge, whispers in the hall. Reese again? Stirring pots. Evelyn testified, her words a quiet thunder. My nephew learned hate from the sidelines. Don't let it playbook another boy's life. The jury, farmers, teachers, a mechanic like Jake's husband, deliberated 2 days, emerging with a verdict. School liable, reforms mandated. Tyler hugged Daniel fierce, murmuring, You threw the pass. I caught it. Driving home, rain sheeting the windshield, catharsis crested. It's over, Daniel said, hand on my knee. The loop closes. But endings are illusions. Life's a spiral, ascending. We moved upstate fully that summer, a fixer-upper in Hudson, with a yard for Max's twilight romps and a studio for my designs. Daniel commuted to the city firm, arguing cases that chipped at closets nationwide. Evenings, we'd grill on the deck, watching fireflies Morse code secrets, his head on my shoulder as stars pricked the ink. Betrayal's scar faded to silver, tender to touch, but proof of survival. One anniversary, I gifted him a custom jersey. Reese 7, back-stitched Hargrove and Harlan, a trinity of loves. He wore it to bed, pulling me close. You saw me whole when I was halves. And you made me brave, I replied, kissing the ink's echo. Max passed that fall, old age gentle as a sigh. Under the oak we planted for Alex, his head in Daniel's lap. We buried him there with his collar and a note. Best wingman ever. Grief bowed us, but didn't break. Holidays brought Ellie's clan, raucous with kids and queer kin, filling the hollows. Years layered on. My gallery show in Chelsea, abstracts of bleachers and bridges. Daniel's book deal, End Zone Confessions, a bestseller that sparked talks in high schools from sea to shining. We mentored Riley through college, hosted Jake's family for Thanksgiving. Boys tumbling with our nephews, stories swapping like recipes. At 40, looking back from our porch swing, the hook that snagged us, the wedding, the dog, the letter, feels like prologue. We've crossed lines uncounted. Adoptions talked of, trips to Pride in San Francisco, where rainbows arch over scars. Humanism, in the end, is this. Love not as conquest, but companionship. Through betrayals buried, secrets surfaced, hearts handed over whole. Daniel's hand in mine, weathered now, squeezes. Worth the fumble? Every yard. I say and mean it. The sun dips, painting the yard gold, and we sit, Two men in the American dusk, containing multitudes, large and unafraid.